Good evening and welcome to Charlton Live, sponsored by PSF Steel Limited. My name is Louis Mendes. Hope you guys are all good on your Thursday evening. Welcome to the big match preview on this week's show. We will, of course, be looking ahead to Saturday's home game with in-form Norwich City at the Valley, plus talking about plenty more. Joining me to do that, first up top right, Mr. Mark Newbury. How's it going, Mark?
I'm okay, mate. I got into a bit of trouble. I made a fake call to the AFCON and told them Morocco had won the cup and they had to give it back, and it's all kicked off from there. So, but you know what? I'm keeping my head down and not letting it wash over me.
Yeah, that could have been a good subject for today. Which sporting or football events would you like to overturn? For cheating. I mean, one thing immediately that springs to mind is I'm fairly confident there was a handball in the FA Cup final last year that needs investigating, and maybe that one could be replayed. But also, bottom of the screen is Tom William. Always good to see you, Tom. Looking forward to Saturday.
Yeah. As I was just saying to you guys off air, it's been a tough couple of weeks personally. Few things going on, so it's nice to be back and focused on football. And we've had a good little run, haven't we? A couple of good wins and a draw. Going into Norwich's game with a bit of confidence, hopefully.
Lovely stuff. Well, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show, Tom. And as he says, we're off the back of a good run and looking ahead to Saturday's game with Norwich. So we will focus on that game shortly. We're going to hear from Nathan Jones later on in the show as well. We've also got a special guest, Joe Rapley, who covers Norwich City as a freelance journalist and knows all about the Canaries, is going to fill us in on Philippe Clement's side. They got beaten last night. The season's just falling apart for them now. As you can see, they lost at Southampton last night. Let's not talk about the 10 wins out of 14 in the build-up before that. But yeah, it's going to be a really tough game. Also, and I thought, let's have a good, honest debate today. Let's talk about our strikers and decide what is our best front pairing. Go through them a bit as well. So I'm going to get you guys involved in that. Good evening to everyone who's joining us in the chat. If you want to have your say on tonight's show, you can email us studio@charltonlive.co.uk. You can tweet us at CharltonLive, or you can add a live comment, which plenty of you have already done. Robert already pointing out, hoping that Norwich have tired legs after last night's defeat to Southampton. So yeah, put a comment in the live chat. There's a few people chucking in some recommendations for results we could overturn. So Paul's gone for the Maradona handball. David Gons for the Thierry Henry handball in the World Cup qualifiers that obviously nicked Ireland's place, I think, in the World Cup a few years ago, didn't it as well? Isaac says the Hitman is still our best striker, no debate. He's not actually on the list because he has retired, which does rule players out of contention sometimes. But yeah, let us know your thoughts ahead of Saturday. You will definitely be getting involved in the striker conversation because I know you guys will have opinions. So looking forward to seeing what you guys have to say on that. So before we debate the strikers, Mark, let's sort of set the scene for Saturday. Looking forward to Isaac said, what about when Wales got into the fight? Oh no, they haven't reached one yet. Yeah, no, we won't need to worry about that just yet, Isaac. But yeah, setting this, Nathan Jones said something quite funny about Wales and England today, actually, which I think Rich is going to have on his website tomorrow, I think, or it might have been this morning. But it was funny. But yeah, I've diverted there. Norwich City on Saturday, Mark. I mean, Tom mentioned it before we get concerned about how well they're doing. We've had a good few weeks really in terms of our results. Last Saturday wasn't necessarily a good performance, and by necessarily, let's be frank, it was a bad performance. But we got an important point out of it, and obviously the win at Middlesbrough. And the win against Birmingham, and actually even the performance against Wrexham before that, even though it was a defeat, was pretty positive. And before that, it was a couple of points on the road. It's not been a terrible few weeks on the field of play for us. So you got to take some element of confidence going into Saturday in what will be a massive tricky game for us.
Oh yeah, I mean totally. The interesting thing is, a lot of our bad games this season have been down amongst the teams around us. Like Oxford being a perfect example, the Pompey game. Perfect example, where we've struggled against, say, West Brom was just a struggle. And if you look at where we've done well, Borough, Birmingham away, Ipswich away, Coventry at home, the better teams who have come and tried to play football and try to be attacking, we've actually risen to that level. And it's a case of Norwich have been in terrific form, and apart from the fact that they started, 2 months behind everyone else, they'd have been right up there, top six, and rightly so. They've got a very good squad. They've got some very, very good players. So, and then the manager seems to be getting a really good tune, and they've been consistent. And that's the thing. I mean, Southampton the other night, it's not going to be an easy one because Southampton are going for it themselves. The tired thing, thinking about Southampton, because Southampton is a massive pitch. So it is, I know you're going to say, well, it's probably only a bit of difference, but you know what I mean? It feels like it's a lot bigger. And so there's a lot of running, very athletic. You do hope it's taken out of them. But last time we had a break and the other team didn't, we lost or drew or we didn't do well. And it's just, we had a chance this week to probably listen to Nathan a bit more. He's probably got it off his chest for the first couple of days, what they didn't do. And if everyone's hitting not tomorrow, I'm probably thinking it's Friday, Saturday, and up for it, and the bench is looking strong, I don't think we should fear them as much as I think it's being put that because of their record at the moment. I think we can give them just a good game, and there's no reason why we can't get something from it.
You're right. I mean, you're right to mention that the game we went into on a break, where the other side hasn't, was when we played Portsmouth. So we'd had the weekend off and they hadn't, and we were like, and they had loads of injuries. Like, it's gonna be a walk in the park, this one, and they absolutely thumped us. But they've been a strange side. Pompey that dropped off horribly over the last few weeks as well. Dudley saying obviously we tend to do better against the better sides, but not Millwall. But that's a different kettle of fish. That is, Dudley. It doesn't matter if Millwall are bottom of the league with 0 points or top of the league with 100 points. We never play well against them anyway. It'll be interesting to see how we sort of attack this game, Tom, because some of our most impressive performances recently, if you look at that away win at Middlesbrough or the away point at Southampton against sides that have been doing well, has been, I'd go as far as saying, like an ultra defensive display. With obviously having a threat on the turnover, of which we had quite a fair bit at Middlesbrough, to be fair, and a little bit, but not as much at Southampton. So I just don't know if that's quite in Nathan's makeup to try and play like that at home against the side sort of mid-table. Norwich, I think their hopes of the playoffs probably went last night after they were beaten by Southampton, who are in sixth now and are 9 points ahead of Norwich. So they're on a great run of form, but they're not quite going to make it into the top six, it would seem, this year. So, but it will be fascinating to see what sort of type of performance we try and put in tactically on Saturday.
Yeah, I agree, and I think I totally agree with you about that defensive style. I think that's what Nathan Jones is. Well, he's built this side on, hasn't he? Since he came in, has been the defence, and then obviously we need to win games, so he's had to look at the attack as well. But it's been fundamentally built on defence, and the stats bore that out. You look at the big games last season as well, like the win against Birmingham at home, where we did have to soak up that pressure, but that was against a Birmingham side who had a lot of the ball and were possibly way above us in terms of level. But I don't think Norwich are that, and I don't think we need to fear them and worry about them in the same way we had to with Birmingham in terms of that threat. And so I think there are other ways to play. And I think now we're, obviously, I listened to the shows whilst I was off, and heard you say, I can't remember if it was after the Borough game, where you said we're definitely safe, and then the others tried to row back a little bit on it on Sunday, although I still agree with you. I think we're pretty much there. Does that give Nathan a little bit of license now to try some stuff out? He's talked about signing Kelman potentially as a striker for the future, ranking Costello as a midfielder for the future. Is there an opportunity at home now against some of these teams to go, okay, let's see what we're like if we play in a different way? I think his desperation to get points this season will probably outweigh his eagerness to try something new. And if there's a way to win, that will take focus. But to speak to Mark's point over the last few weeks or months or seasons with Ibby Fuller, do you just chuck him in and give him a go because he's somebody for the future and you try something new? Do you try a different formation where TC plays in a more natural position on the wing? See what happens. So he's got options within this squad for sure. And when we come onto the striker debate, I'm sure we'll talk about that with the fact that TC isn't really built as a striker. I don't think Nathan Jones is going to do that, even probably when we're mathematically safe. But the options are there for him to start to try that. And if he does want to become a more expansive side, moving into our second and hopefully third season and beyond at this level or higher, he's going to need to bite the bullet and give it a go at some point. But I think for this season, certainly for the next few games, the results will be more important for him, because if we do lose a couple, do lose 2 or 3, we could get dragged back into it. I'm like you, I don't think we will. but I'm sure that will be at Nathan Jones's mind. It would be ridiculous to throw it away at this stage. And so to that end, he'll probably stay with that sort of defensive solidity in mind and try and build from that.
Yeah, I mean, me and Rich were sort of chatting last night about how many points we would need. So I think we're on 48 now. So the reason I'm saying I'm safe is because there's zero chance that we get 0 points. So I mean, even if things go horribly wrong between now and the end of the season, we'd finish on probably 52 points. Like there's still, what was it, 8 games left? Like I mean, it would take something utterly bizarre for us to be in that situation. But you're right, until it's 50 points, and that's that's the number that Nathan Jones actually sort of mentioned on Saturday. Until it's there, then maybe he won't quite do that. But we see David saying 3 more points would make us safe on Saturday. Keith saying, I don't think Nathan will change things until we are mathematically safe. And James, can I point out that pretty much there isn't there? Let's do all this after we are safe. It's a strange league. Or it would take something utterly bizarre for us to go down now, which I just can't see happening. But, you know, I'll be the one looking silly because people will clip up me going, we're definitely safe, and then post that when we've been relegated on the final day of the season. So that's the risk I'm willing to take. Spam says he thinks that Southampton and Norwich have been far better sides than Wrexham recently. All hell let loose, saying that we should let Norwich attack us and play on the counter. And we'll hear from Joe later on in the show, our Norwich correspondent, but it does sound like Norwich aren't ones to like really sit back away from home. They'll come out and play a little bit. Sam saying, I agree, Louis, with us being 9 points clear from the bottom, we should be okay unless we completely stop. Isaac saying, is playoffs not on the cards? Yeah, I think I'm going to rule this out of that one as well, unfortunately. But we'll go. Dudley, I think we'll beat Norwich if we're on our game. If we're off it, we won't. It's as simple as that. Who knows what Charlton will turn up on any given day? And that's a very good question. You know, having watched us at times this season, it has been at times a little bit inconsistent. I think when we've been nearer to our full fitness, then we've tended to be fitter, but and play better. But there we go. Right. So Richard said we need to turn the Valley into a fortress on Saturday, and when our goal scoring chances come, we need to make sure we take them. So that, I think, segues quite nicely on to our next discussion point. So I was thinking earlier, like, well, you know, it's been a while since we've had a proper debate on the show about what certain players can do and what certain players can't. And I always thought, well, the biggest debate this season has been Tyrese Campbell, but therefore, you know, he's not the only striker we've got. So let's sort of take a run through our strikers. Look at what we think they're good at. Look at what we think they can improve at. And then after that, we will decide out of all of these pairings that I've put together, what we think our best striking partnership is. Now, that is a debate for sometimes away from home or sometimes a different type of game. You know, it could be two different answers depending on what. But I think today we'll just go purely on the strikers. James has said, and I agree, this is always one we do a little bit later on in the season. It'd be interesting to explore contract situations and who might leave. That's definitely one on the list for over the next few weeks. You know, players we'd like to see go, players we'd like to stay, that sort of thing. So we'll definitely do that at other points in the season between now and the end of the year. But for now, I'm gonna focus on the striker. So obviously everyone in the chat get involved as well. Paul's already saying, can we say that TC is a winger, not a striker? Or you're gonna have to run that one past Nathan Jones, I'm afraid. So he's a striker on the list. So let's go through. So I've got Dykes, Kelman, Campbell, Godden, and Leeburn. Obviously, haven't included the hitman Hilton because he doesn't play anymore. Haven't included Fevrier because he's more of a winger, but I think he can play striker. Who I haven't included the players who are out on loan. There's probably players I've forgotten as well, but they're the main ones. So looking at Lyndon Dykes, first of all, Mark, best attributes, what can improve? What would you say about him? What would you say about his overall game? Because I mean, he's been pretty pivotal since he's come into the side.
Well, it's going to sound funny because I think his best attribute is his experience, and that's what he's brought into the side. The goals he's scored have been not panicked, finished well. He's not rushed anything. And I think he's got that experience that if he gets lent on or tackled in a way, he knows he can draw a foul. He can bring people in. And obviously, he's got a couple of assists where he's got flicks on in the air. So I think what he's added to us, and it's funny because when he came in, when we got him, I think there were some eyebrows with, hold on, this guy can't even sort of like warm the bench at Birmingham. Why are we picking him up? But it's shown that Birmingham don't know what they've got. because they'd rather keep Ratface and send him out. And he's proven with his fitting into the group. And I know Nathan's very big on someone who fits into the group and can improve the squad. But he's already done that. You know, I saw a clip earlier of over asking the players about the academy, and he absolutely rinses Doc and Josh Edwards. And I like that. I like the fact that he's in there doing that. And you very much says ulterior motive, he wanted to get to Scotland squad, but he's still got to do it on the pitch. And he'll drop back into midfield when it's backs against a wall. Yeah, he's no youngster. He's not going to run around like a whippet chasing a ball, but he knows where to be and be in the right place. So for me, it's what can improve. Well, obviously, you could probably copy and paste this for all of them. More goals, but I think he's taken his chances when they've come along. I think maybe just there's for one which he slightly shinned where you're thinking he could have finished it, but you know that would be a harsh one to say, you know, rubbish. But I think he's actually really improved our front line, regardless of who's gone alongside him.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting stuff. I mean, there's a few good comments in the chat on Lyndon Spam saying that Dykes, his intelligence and work rate and link play have been his best bits. All hell let loose has said occupying opposition defenders has been what he likes about him. Yeah, and then I mean, Tom, I'm not going to make you do all the bits where what they can improve. I'll switch it because it just make you sound like a dickhead, really. But, for Lyndon in particular, what would you like to see more of? I mean, Mark said goals, basically.
I think I'd agree. Yeah, I haven't seen him have a lot of opportunities to take goals, and so either that's because we haven't given them to him, or he's not getting in the right place to finish them. So I think possibly goals. The other thing I would say, and again, it's harsh to say what can improve because I don't know if this is really what we need from him. But if we're looking at one of the greatest strikers of all time and thinking, how does Lyndon Dykes get towards that? Let's say Danny Hilton. How do we get Lyndon Dykes more like Danny Hilton? Then possibly running with the ball a bit more. So he does his hold-up play, he does his link-up play, all of that sort of stuff, and that's great. And personally, I think that's what he's in the team to do. But can he get the ball and run at defenders and take a shot from the edge of the box? We haven't seen him do that. He's not that sort of striker. So could that improve? In theory, yes. Would that make him a better striker? I don't actually know because I don't know if that's what he's there for, really. So I think it's harsh. But yeah, ultimately more goals. You look at his goal record at any other team as well, and that's the thing that stands out is his goals is limited for him.
Yeah, not always been his forte, but I mean, I agree with people saying how much he's improved us. James saying he's the best all-round championship level number 9. We've got worst is his general link-up play. Sam saying hopefully he'll go up to. He's called up with Scotland, didn't he? So hopefully he'll end up going to the World Cup, which I assume he will. I really hope he does. I think he deserves it for the amount of hard work he's put in for us. I mean, this will be a bit of a recurring theme, and I think it's fair. Like the strikers are only as good as the chances created for them, and I do think there's probably it's quite harsh to be judged purely as a striker in our side when we're not the most creative team. But anyway, so Tom, I'm gonna keep you in the hot seat for the best attributes for Charlie Kelman. What have you made of him so far? I mean, he's up to 6 goals now, I think, after the penalty kick against Oxford over the weekend. What have you liked about him most?
Well, at the start of the season, what I liked about him was his work rate, because we weren't scoring a lot of goals in the early part of the season. He didn't score for ages, but he did not give up. He was just properly hassling defenders, constantly impressing. And we saw when he stepped out of the team, the drop-off that came from that. So I thought that was excellent. Obviously, we do know he's got goal scoring in him. We don't know quite at this level yet, but obviously he'd done it so much for Leyton Orient last year. And I think as we've started to see the goals, I think the comparison between him and Godden is going to sound lazy, but I just don't think it is. I think that sniffer dog element that Matty Godden has is there with Kelman. His ability to just take a goal on the half turn, to get a chance out of nothing. And again, going back to that comment earlier about they're only as good as the balls played into them. I feel like if balls get played into some of our strikers, that might not be the case. But with him, I think it is. And I think if he's in the box in the right place, he will finish those chances. I don't think we've seen him. I'm not going to say he's not as good as Matty Godden, or I've just seen as well James Mooney mentioning Alfie May as well. I don't think we've seen that yet. He may well be better than both of those strikers or go on to be. I don't think we've seen that yet. But I think the attributes about him are definitely there. And I think another big thing is just his honesty and his ability to self-reflect. And obviously, again, while I was off, you played that interview with him. Was it after the Oxford game, I think, or one of the games anyway, where, he said, look, I haven't been at my best recently, but having that self-awareness and that ability to critique himself has shown that it's paid off, because he's gone back to the training ground, he's worked himself back up, and now he looks like not quite a complete striker, but back on his way to being a complete striker. And I agree with what you said the other week. If he can get himself to 10 goals, that's a great return for a team that doesn't score a lot of goals across us. I think that would be, and a player who's had a period out with injury. So yeah, he's probably the one that I think has got the most assets to be the most complete striker we've got. It's just about whether he can put all those things together at this level. Personally, I think he can, and I've sort of banged that drum since game one. But I think it's going to take him a little while just to find his feet at this level, and he's still a young striker. So I'm excited about Kelman if he can stick around. I think he could be one we could build around.
Yeah, James saying Kelman, best is his pressing, worst is finding the spaces that a Godden or May finds. Chris said he likes Charlie's attitude, really positive. We've interviewed him a couple of times over the last couple of weeks. Like the interview after Oxford on Saturday was generally, I think, my favourite interview I've done so far this season. He was quite a bit more relaxed because we'd spoken to him the week before as well, so I sort of made it a bit more of a fun one, and it was a good one. Venom says Kelman needs a bit of consistency, which I think is fair. David said he's still learning his trade. Bernie said, I'm not sure about his work rate, could do more out of possession. And as All Hell Let Loose says, sometimes it can feel like he's not affecting games as much. Now, funnily enough, at the start of last season, it took a long time for it to feel that Godden was affecting games. But by the end of it, there was a game where Godden wasn't scoring. Like, his link-up play was so clear, Mark. So I think that's something that will come on, hopefully, and we'll need to. But yeah, for Charlie then, so the downsides, what do you reckon? Where could he be better?
Well, it's funny, and I've got to thank Joe Puddyfoot, who was our stat man, because I'd asked him about how many games did Charlie miss when he was injured. He said it was about 10 he hasn't been involved in. And again, agree with what someone said, consistency. It does seem like when he's been in and he looked like he was doing well, he's been dropped the following week or he's been benched. And I think every striker just wants to play, even if they don't score for 2-3 games. Once they start getting a run on, then they know they can knock it. It's just like you said, happened with Gordon last year. I'd like to see him play a bit more on the shoulder of the centre halves as opposed to being a bit static. And that's where I think he needs to improve. I think he needs to improve his movement across the back four and draw people out. He's not going to be like the rampaging Steve Bull kind of striker, socks down running, but he can be a bit cleverer and move people and get between people because he is quite quick and he can pass the ball. And I think he's what I call, like Matty Godden, he's a natural striker. He doesn't look, he knows the goal doesn't move. Lyndon Dykes does the same thing, knows the goal isn't going to move. So he knows where it is. If he hits it true, and he scores some good goals for us. So I want to see him, because he's not the smallest. I'd like to see them using him at corners more and attacking the ball and running in on things. We tend to try and hit Lloyd, get back across. So potentially that sort of thing. But it's a funny one. We've got him on a 3-year contract. It's only his first year. Consistency, give him a run of games, and then let's see. Because too often, if you give someone 2 games and then they're dropped out, you're thinking, well, he must be going, well, hold on, what else can I do? I've not seen the ball. The midfield hasn't got it to me. It's just coming straight back. It's not sticking when I have got it. I'm a victim of the way we've played, and yet I'm bearing the brunt. I'm on the bench next week because Nathan's thinking I haven't done enough. But there's only so much you can do. I think give him a ball, and I think he can poke it away. And it's just getting the ball to him.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, Isaac saying he says he doesn't quite see the work rate, seems a bit lost at times. I think the difference from the start of the season, where we were this really high ultra pressing side when him and TC were chasing down stuff, Like you could sort of see it then. Now it's different. He's a top scoring striker though. Does seem to know where the goal is. I think if you look at some of his finishing this year, it has been very good. His goal against Oxford at home, I think was my favourite one that he's put in. Right. Liam said, I seem to have joined the show just in time for Tyrese Campbell. This should be fun. So Mark, you're on best attributes for TC. We've got to get through 3 strikers in the space of about 5 minutes here. So
his
let's
best
make it
attribute.
snappy. Yeah.
He's got nice hair. His speed. Does he put it to as much use? His finishing, his crossing. It depends which TC turns up. A confident kid who can turn people inside out, come in, cut in, hit it with his right foot, curl it into the bottom corner TC, or the TC who, gets accused of not being interested. And I think that's probably a bit an unfair thing to put out to a player, of not being interested, because I think if that was his attitude, Nathan would have him off faster than you could probably imagine. So it's difficult because the season he's had, and he's become almost like the whipping boy. I think we just want him to do well. He was struggling playing at the left wing back role. I agree. I'd have him as a winger, not as a striker. But we know from he'd done well pre-season. And when we started last season in League One, he was up front. And again, he is learning his trade. It's people say, "Oh, he's not a championship footballer." Well, he's playing in the championship. He's learning. It's like we don't have a team of experience. Next season, I think we'll see a much better and a much improved TC, because I think this season is a learning curve for him, and it's quite hard to watch sometimes because it's like taking the stabilizers off a kid's bike. You really want them to do well. You don't want them to crash into a tree, and so sometimes you're looking with one eye as they're freewheeling down a hill, but the moment where they hit it and they're spinning around, going around on 2 wheels, it's so satisfying to see. And I think with TC, if that'll happen, it'll click for him. He'll have the stabilizers off, and he'll look like a championship winger. And if he can put crosses in, we've got people we know can finish them, but it's getting that service in. So, I don't agree with a pile-on. I think it's a bit harsh but people are allowed opinions. So,
yeah. Well, I'm gonna save Tom from doing the negative stuff because we are gonna run short of time here as well. But I'll just run through some of the ones in the chat. So Liam said decision making would be the main improvement. Gary would like to see him as an out-and-out winger more. All hell let loose says he needs to run the channels more, and the midfielders find him. But one-on-one, he finds Tyrese Campbell a bit unconvincing. TC should always be on the move, said Andrew. Spam says if we had other players so that he wasn't always doubled up, he would get far less hate than he would lately. And as Liam said, finishing is definitely not something we could say is a positive, unfortunately, for TC. Keith says he's not a striker. Venom says he needs to cut in a bit earlier. So on Matty Godden, Thomas, it's a bit hard really because we ain't seen him at all this year really, other than 3 or 4 games. So this is more on memory. But briefly, what's your favourite bits of him?
If you want it brief, finishing, simple as that. He is a goal scorer, which is what you want from a striker. He's sniffer dog, exactly that. If there's a chance in or around the 6 or 18-yard box, he needs one opportunity and he'll take it. It's as simple as that. He's just a brilliant finisher, and I really, really hope he gets an opportunity to do that with us, probably next season now. But I'd love to just keep it. I don't know what his contract situation is, but if we can keep him on, I'd love to see it. And hopefully, this injury towards the back end of his career isn't something that's going to be a long-term issue. But I see you've put it there already. But yeah, that might be the only issue. But yeah, finishing by a long way his best strength. Yeah,
and everyone's sort of saying finishing's the best bit for him. And yeah, sadly, his fitness. And just finally, then Miles Leeburn, Mark, best attributes for him.
His close control. Basically, put a football on the end of his toe, and it literally sticks there. That's his probably best thing, and it's his best thing. But bringing other people into the game, I think he struggles with. But then sometimes that could be the centre half who's up his backside. He's getting pushed around. I think he's had great games where Nathan was waxing lyrical about he's becoming a proper championship 9. But then there's other games where you think to yourself, you put yourself around a bit more. Can you speed up a bit more? You've got big, long legs, open them up and use them. But his close control, I think, is possibly the best person who's got it in that team. I think if you put it to his feet, the option is, knock it up and he's getting knock-ons and winning his duels, but there's no one running in behind him. So I think with him, if you gave it to him, his feet in the area, he can dribble past and finish. But it's getting him into the right places.
Yeah, I agree with James on the negative one, his inconsistency. So you remember there was a spell around Christmas. I remember the Blackburn away game where I think he might come off injured in that game, but some of the chasing and running he was doing at spells around that, he was getting so many plaudits from the crowd. But then there's other games where it feels like he can be a bit quiet, and again, that's not unheard of for all of our strikers. But yeah, that's up there, right? So just briefly then, Tom and Mark, we've got Joe waiting in the ranks as well, and I want to turn our attention to Norwich shortly. Our best front two. So I've put together a list of all the possible pairings from that. Hopefully I've spelled all their names correctly because I did that quite quickly. But Tom and Mark, Tom first, who would you say is our best front two? And obviously it does change on different types of games, but if you had to pick one for us overall, who would you feel most confident with?
I think probably it would be Dykes-Godden, but we haven't seen it and we don't know. So if I had to just go on what I've seen this season, I think Dykes and Kelman have been the best.
And then Mark, your best one?
I'm looking at that and I'm going Dykes and Kelman only because I'm thinking they're not identical. I think if you have Kelman and Leeburn, there's too much similarities. And I think Kelman will learn from having Dykes alongside him. Kelman and Godden, I would love to see, but it's whether we'll ever get to see that, I don't know. But for me, at the moment, it would be Dykes and Kelman.
Lovely stuff. Right, we are going to have a break now. I think maybe when we sort of refocus on Saturday's lineup, maybe some people can give us their thoughts on who the best front two is. I mean, Keith is saying Dykes and Godden when fit. But yeah, we can do that later on in the show. But let's go to a break now. When we come back, it'll be time to turn our attention to Saturday's home game with Norwich City.
PSF Steel Limited is a trade supplier of steel fabrication and erection services to the new build, construction and refurbishment market in southern England. With their unrivaled depth of experience, they excel at providing their customers with high quality and cost-effective steel fabrication solutions. Their customers include national and regional house builders such as Barratt Homes, Bellway Homes, the Vistry Group and Taylor Wimpey. They pride themselves on their service-based ethos and commitment to customer service excellence, which includes full technical backup and on-site services and support. If you would like more information, go to www.psfsteel.co.uk. That's www.psfsteel.co.uk.
Hello fellow addicts, I'm so excited to tell you all about our micropub, the River Ale House. The River Ale House is based in East Greenwich. It has 6 Pub of the Year awards, an ever-changing selection of amazing beer. It's owned by Charlton fans, walkable to the ground in just 20 minutes with buses that go direct to the Valley too. If your matchday routine includes a drink with your friends, you must join your fellow addicts in the river. See you soon.
Right, welcome back to Charlton Live. This is the big match preview, and it is time to look ahead to Saturday's home game with Norwich City. Delighted to say that Jerry Rapley, who's a freelance journalist for BBC Radio Norfolk and the Pink 'Un up there in Norwich, is joining us now. How you doing, Jay?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you, Lewis. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Thanks so much for joining us on this evening's show. We were talking earlier about how the wheels have really come off now at Norwich, obviously after last night's one defeat. After an incredible run. I think when you cast your mind back to that late Oxford equaliser at Carrow Road, I can't remember if that was Manning's last game or near the end of his time there, and things just looked like they were falling off a cliff edge. But it's been a remarkable turnaround for Norwich since Philippe Clement's come in. What has changed? What has he done? Because that man seems to have the Midas touch.
I think that's the question that or even all Norwich fans are a little bit unsure on. We're sort of still trying to figure out whether it was Liam Manning underachieving with the squad or whether Clement's found something sort of within the club that's brought everyone together. But yeah, I mean, that Oxford game feels like a long time ago now. That was one of Clement's very first games for us. And I think not too long after that, we then actually played at home on Boxing Day 2 you lot to Charlton, and we won that game 1-0, and that was sort of one of the early signs we had that we turned a bit of a corner under Clement. And like you say, unfortunately fell a little bit short on the south coast last night, but even still there in the second half, we were pushing. We looked like the better side, and to be in potential relegation battles and looking at League One football, to even being able to discuss the opportunity to be in the playoffs, it's quite some turnaround.
Hey Joe, it's funny because I've got an absolutely irrational hatred of Ipswich, so I think I'd fit quite nicely in a Norwich fan thing. Looking how you've started the season, I mean, you started literally 2 months after everybody else. Do you feel that it's almost like, as well as you're doing now, that it was just a missed opportunity? Because it's not been a great Championship league, if you know what I mean. Because there's been Coventry have had a good run and then have just picked up again, but everyone up the top just seems to be sort of like ticking along, and you're sort of like coming up on the rails, but maybe just left it a little too late. Do you think it? And I heard someone on the radio say, just a yo-yo side, Premiership down. Do you think it's been a missed opportunity this season to actually be in that top six from the beginning?
To be honest, Mark, I think that's a really good point, because we sort of look at it now, and since I think the start of 2026, I think we actually might have the most points in the league, and like you said, it probably is a little bit of a poorer Championship to what I was expecting this year. I think the sides like Leicester underachieving massively, and clubs like Ipswich as well, who I thought would, in my opinion, they would walk the league, and they've looked a little bit inconsistent at times. Obviously, I'm probably going to say that because I've got a slight Norwich tint on my view, but yeah, no, I think you're spot on. You look at the league and just how well we've done, how many points we've picked up recently, and it does feel like a little bit of missed opportunity. And if we'd have maybe made a different decision with our manager at the start of the season, I think we would be looking at a different conversation come the end of the season. So all things considered, I think you're right. I think we do look at it as a little bit of a missed opportunity to be putting ourselves back in the picture of Premier League football.
Joey, I think, is this third or fourth consecutive season now in the Championship? And as Mark said previously, a bit of a yo-yo club. I was looking at your squad earlier and it looks massive. I don't know if that is the case, but it certainly looked it on the stats websites I was looking at. So thinking ahead to the summer, you're going to be a Championship club, it seems, next year as well. What do you need to do to be a club that starts to look back up the table again? Is there a clear out needed, or the squad looks bloated, but obviously you'll know more about the players that are in it than we do?
Yeah, I think the first thing that we need to sort of figure out is why on earth we keep having so many injury issues. I mean, don't get me wrong, every team in the league, or well, across football in general, has injuries. I accept that, but we've currently got 14 first team players out injured, and it's been that way for a while. They've not necessarily been injuries that have been 2 or 3 week situations and they've come back in. So there's lots of players in there that consistently getting injured that maybe we need to look to shift, that are on a decent sized wage as well. And maybe look at bringing in players that, yes, they've got a good injury record, but obviously can also provide at this level as well. I mean, our best signing recently has probably, in my opinion, been Paris Magoma, who was excellent whilst he was on loan at Bolton. He won their Young Player of the Season there. So, and also, obviously, again, he got injured, but Jovan Makama, who was excellent at Lincoln as well. So you've got 2 players there that performed fantastically in League One, and they had a slightly better injury record, like I say, albeit now Makama's got a broken bone in his foot, so he's going to be missing for probably the rest of the season. So I would like to see us maybe shift out some players that aren't featuring because they've got consistently poor injury records, because as much as sometimes it isn't their fault, it's no good paying a player a wage that isn't playing for the club. So I think we need to sort of condense the squad a little bit, absolutely, and then replace with quality, which is maybe in smaller doses than what we get rid of.
So who should we be wary of on Saturday then? So funnily enough, you've mentioned 2 players I was going to ask about there, but as obviously Makama scored against us, but seems to be out. I remember Magoma scoring against us for Bolton last season, but obviously, I mean, outside of these sort of walking wounded players, who are the ones who could cause us some real trouble? And also, I mean, how will Philippe Clement attack this game on Saturday? So we're better out of possession. I heard someone last night say that Norwich aren't the sort of side to sit back away from home. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, we've actually been, just as good away from home as we have at home under Clement. There's not really been much of a difference in approach. The only games that we've lost away of recent I can remember is a 1-0 away at Middlesbrough and also 1-0 last night as well. So I don't think it'll be a case of us sort of being scared to, like you say, come at Charlton just because we're away from home. But I think in terms of players that you're looking at to create issues, Magoma's the man at the minute that seems to be the one to unlock everything for us. But Slimani as well has been excellent recently, and he's someone that, if I'm being completely honest, I'd almost written off in a Norwich shirt. I thought that he was a squad player that we weren't really going to use, and now sometimes he touches the ball and he does things that I can't believe I'm watching. And he's been excellent. He's been a fantastic option to have in there. Ali Ahmed, who we signed in January as well, has given us a directness on the wing, which is always nice to see. I like a winger that will drive at the fullback and take them on, rather than this sort of new obsession to run down the line 20 yards, cut back inside and lay the ball back 10 yards and sort of gets rid of the progress they've made. So, outside of Paris Magoma and obviously the injured Jovan Makama, I'd say that the two I look to create issues are Ali Ahmed and Anis Ben Slimani.
Lovely. So I'll just a couple of questions in the chat. So Sam's asking about how people felt about Josh Sargent with his whole departure. And Adam's saying, what sort of formation do they play? I think they play with a false 10. Andrew, hoping that you play with a false goalkeeper. We've had a few of those over the years. But yeah, I mean, let's do the Sargent one first, because I did enjoy reading some of that stuff. That's quite funny.
Yeah, I think the Josh Sargent situation is quite funny, because we obviously looking like, from an outsider looking in, it's sort of, Norwich have lost a big player there. But he sort of said that he didn't really want to play for the club anymore, and that his head was set on a move away a couple of months before he actually got the move. So it was sort of a case of we were playing without him anyway whilst he was still in the squad. And I think it actually got to a point with most Norwich fans that we were just happy to see the end of the situation. We were just happy to be able to move him on and be able to sort of forget about it in a sense. It was also a little bit of a kick in the teeth now, because we've got 3 strikers that are out injured, and the profile that we like to play, sort of coming on to the formation question, is to come around a big tall striker who, that's sort of the profile that Clement likes to play with, and we haven't actually got one of those at the minute. We've got Matthias Kvistgarten, who is more of a getting behind striker, and we'll look to find pockets. I'm not sure if that's the false 10 that they were referencing there, but we don't have that striker. But the situation with Sargent, we were just happy to see the end of that, because it was becoming a big debacle that nobody really wanted to be associated with in Norwich.
Lovely stuff. Right, we'll leave it there, Joey. Really enjoyed having you on the show. Hopefully we can get you on again next season if we are both in the Championship, which is looking likely. But we haven't ruled out making a late dart for the playoffs ourselves yet, so we'll see. But yeah, Joey, that was brilliant. Thanks for your time this evening, and we'll see you again next season.
Pleasure. Thanks, lads.
There we go. That's Joey from BBC Radio Norfolk and the Pink, and freelance journalist covering Norwich City. It's a massive club, Norwich. It's a great club, Norwich. I really like going to their ground and watching games at Carrow Road. I like the area as well. So looking forward to playing them on Saturday, as is Nathan Jones, of course. Let's hear him looking ahead to the game at the Valley. This is what the Addicts boss had to say. This is either Charlotte or Terry put on a strange voice during the presser today.
Separate us and Norwich in 12th in the division. It highlights again how competitive and tightly contested the division is. What kind of test are you expecting from them on Saturday?
Look, they're in a false position for the squad and the team and what they have. They're in a very false position. Obviously they started very poorly and they're playing catch up, but they're one of the better teams in the league. They're well coached, well organised, very fluid, got a wonderful squad, and a squad that was probably underperforming. Now they're performing to their levels. Obviously the games they've had, we had a tough game against them, albeit we were kind of depleted at the time. I've watched them in recent weeks where they've been in excellent form. Obviously picked up a defeat last night, but that was a wonderful championship game against a very, very good Southampton side. So we know it's going to be a really, really tough game, and one we're going to have to be the best versions of ourselves, and that's all we can concentrate on.
On that note then, since Philippe Clement became Norwich boss, they've been one of the most formidable teams in the Championship, but we do always like to focus on ourselves. So what, in terms of our tool of weapons, do we need to make the absolute most of on Saturday?
Well, we just need to be us, and if we're us and we we are aggressive and energetic, and we stick to our game plan, then we can compete with anyone in the league. We've shown that. If we take it lightly and we're easy-ozy and we're passive, then these are a very good side, and they will hurt you in a number of ways. So again, it's all we say is if we're us and we're the best version of us, that's all we can control. And I'm usually a very happy man when we are the best version of us.
You recently chalked up your 100th league game in charge here at Charlton Athletic. We often talk about our team evolving, but I wanted to ask you on a personal level, how do you feel you've evolved as a manager since this chapter at Charlton?
Look, in lots of ways. I mean, I think when we came in the position we were in, and from where we are now, I think we as a club have moved forward considerably on pretty much every level. You look at logistically we have, in terms of the quality of the squad and the players we have. You look at the academy and what they're producing, and in our first team, you look at the women where they are. Community Trust continue to be doing well, and then the first team are in a totally different realm and competition than we were when we came in. So I think the club has moved forward. Now, to achieve that and to keep moving forward, look, as a manager, you get tested. We've had some tough times, and I've one, had to show my experience, two, had to make sane decisions, and I've been able to do that with the board and the people that I have around me. I've been able to do that, and I think, look, we're in a very good position. I think we could be in better, and I think, albeit for a 6-week period around November, December, we would be, but this is our fledgling year, back in the Championship, and we want to just keep growing. And if we grow at the rate that we have in the previous 2 years, then we're going to be in a wonderful place.
There we go. That's Nathan chatting with Charlotte earlier on today, looking ahead to Norwich, and of course referencing the 100-game mark, which he has passed now for the Addicts. He also spoke about the great work that we do in the community, which we always know about, but he talked about every level of the club improving. And so I think we can go as far as saying we need to do a shout out for the lads at Dulverton Primary School as well, who've won the Championship regional finals of the Kids Cup, and they're representing Charlton, and so now they get to play at Wembley representing Charlton Athletics. So shout out to the lads down at Dulverton. Mrs. Mendez is very impressed with your performances, as I'm sure you can imagine. So Nathan Jones, 100 games up. Mark, it was a great question by Charlotte about how he has evolved. James says that Jones hasn't massively evolved on his sound bites since coming in. I think you were doing a drinking game there for every best version of ourselves, I've noticed. But I mean, it's clearly the club has come on leaps and bounds since he's come in over the course of that 100 games. We are a completely different animal to where we've been to where we are now. What would you feel? Have you noticed a change in Nathan, or is it Nathan being Nathan consistently for 100 games that has got us where we are?
I don't know. It's a difficult one because obviously he's the first one to do 100 since Bo. And have we evolved as a team? Yes. And he takes for credit for that. There's a couple of things where we've looked at players he's brought in and hasn't managed to get what we wanted to get out of them. The two who are out on loan, Apter and Tanto. And you think, so does he look at it as a failure on his part to not get the best out of them? Because he was very much quick when he was asked a few weeks ago when we're going, they want to go out and play. They don't want to be part of the squad and work here. They want to get games, which he goes, I understand, they're footballers. But you could tell that he probably wanted them to say, I don't want to go on loan, Gaffer. I want to stay and fight for my place. So he's got to take some, criticism for that. But I think at the moment, it's just a fit. The celebrations at the end, when he's fist pumping, and I know a lot of away fans say, it's all acting, he's all acting. I think he's not. He's just a heart on his sleeve kind of guy. And it's good that he's got 100 and he's got fairly good record. I think it's like 41% win. So it's decent. And if he can keep that up, and I think he will evolve and bring the players in and swap players he doesn't want. Whether we cut our losses with some of them, it remains to be seen. But But no, it's pleasing, and I think it's a good fit for us. I've seen a lot of managers at Charlton over my years, and I think with Powley, Bo, Jacko, Curbs, He would go into top 5 easily for managers I've seen over the years.
Interesting. I mean, the 100 games, Tom. I mean, you can't sort of underestimate how rare that is these days. Like for one club, it just doesn't. Everyone's really concerned about Mark's cough there. It's getting late stage COVID or something, but yeah, no, he'll be fine. But yeah, it's a rare achievement for these days, as Mark said. You know, I think Bo's probably the last one that got there for us. I feel like there's still so much more ground to go as well. I feel like there's a lot more distance to run in this one, which is, you know, I think Bo, by the time, I can't remember how many exactly he ended up doing, but sort of by the time he'd been there 2 or 3 years, it felt like there wasn't much longer to go yet. Nathan's been with us for, you know, a couple of years now, and I feel like there's still a long way to go along the path of what we can achieve with Nathan.
And I think some of that for Bo was down to the ownership.
Yeah,
Not
definitely.
really.
Yeah, definitely,
Like it was them, wasn't it? Not backing him as opposed to him running his course. Although, obviously, his temperament, although you could say that about Jones, his temperament might rub players up the wrong way and whatever. But I think you know who you're signing for. And so I'm not worried so much about that. But yeah, I imagine you and me both grew up. Well, I certainly grew up under Curbs. So for 15 years as a Charlton fan, I only knew one manager, and that's very, very rare. You know, there's only 2 other clubs really in our lifetime that can do the same in England, to say that they grew up in that period with the same. So I remember when Curbs left, and I was like, okay, this is weird, but hopefully we'll get someone else in who'll do something similar. And obviously, you know, I'm not naive enough to know that football doesn't happen like that, and that was rare. But then we've just cycled through managers, and of course, by their very nature, the reason the managers who stay longer do well, that's the reason they're staying longer. They're staying longer because they're doing well. If they're not doing well, they're out. But I agree with you. I think Nathan Jones is building something, and I think he deserved that time. And I tried to fight for it with most of the managers we had over the past few years, not because I thought they were necessarily good, but because I thought time was needed to prove that we are able to do this. Nathan Jones came in and earned that time. And that's the thing. When Michael Appleton went, for example, I was as happy as anybody else that Michael Appleton wasn't our manager any longer. But what I was so furious about was the fact that, again, it didn't feel like he'd been given enough time. And I'm so delighted that he wasn't. And I'm so delighted Nathan Jones came in. And Jones earned that time, as I say, by solidifying and by proving he could do it. But let's not forget, midway through last season, he was having a down spell where it looked like it might be a week or 2 from going, and there were rumours of board members flying over to say goodbye to him. And looking back now, how lucky we are that decision didn't get made. So, look, I've made no secret of the fact that I adore the man. The Welsh connection is obviously huge. I love his passion. I love his enthusiasm. And I'd love to see him build with us and see what he can achieve. I love the fact he's a pantomime villain. I love the fact other clubs hate him. There's not much I dislike about him. So, yeah, he's deserved it. He's earned it. And hopefully there's more to come from him.
Yeah, sorry, I was just giggling to myself at the thought of how much Mark Newbury would hate Nathan Jones if he wasn't a Charlton fan, because he hates people who are harmless. But Nathan Jones, you'd be apoplectic every time he came on your screen, Mark. But there we go. Paul says Nathan's done a cracking job, and he really fits Charlton as of yet. Every time things look iffy, has got us going again as well. Curbs used to do that all the time. That's a great point. I mean, you know, you think after Millwall this season, after Bristol Rovers last season, and after Crawley last season, there were some big sort of holes to dig yourself out of, and he's done that every time, and he's found a way to keep going, which has been so impressive with Nation's tenure, and he's kept us in the Championship with a bottom 3 budget. You know, I don't think we should underestimate how good this has been this season for us. You know, there's been frustrating times where we've gone through little runs of spells and not won games and stuff, where the football hasn't been the best all the time, but overall we've massively overachieve where we should be, and that's important as well. Looking ahead to Saturday, then we sort of previewed it a bit at the top there, but after hearing from Joey, Mark, and looking at ourselves and the game against Norwich on Saturday, there's elements of the side that will probably pick themselves again. Obviously, we know, I think it seems unlikely that, you know, anyone's really majorly coming back. I think like Sechenje and Godden until after the international break. So I don't think there's going to be many choices to be made other than, I mean, who's going to play up front, you know, who would be the right pick for this game on Saturday? I said after the game at Oxford last week that I think TC could probably do with a bit of a break now. You know, he looks tiring. He looks tired, and the bits of his game that were the better bits this season have definitely dried up in the last couple of weeks. It feels like for me. So I would be one to see probably Charlie Kelman start alongside Lyndon Dykes. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I'd go with that 100%. And I'm thinking if you've got Leeburn and TC on the bench to come on, I think that's a great weapon to have in your arsenal, because I think those two do work well together. It wouldn't be a Thursday show unless I said I'd like to see Ibi Fuller. But for one person I'd probably like to see, I'd probably drop Coventry and put JRC in, only because I just think we'll have a bit more space in midfield for him to exploit. And I think that's what we sort of we need. It's not that Coventry's really done anything wrong and has worked like a dog. But I just think invention-wise, and I think with a run he had down the wing when he first came on against Oxford, okay, it faltered right at the very end, but he had it. Ball was tied on the end of his bootlace, and that was it. They weren't getting off him. And I like him, and I just think himself he can come in and do that job, because you've got Doc. Possibly Carey comes out for JRC and you put Cody in with Doc, so you've got a real hard-working shield in front of that. I mean, I like the way that Joey was talking about, you know, they like having a big guy up front and piling it forward. I'm thinking, oh, lovely. Lloyd's got his napkin tucked in his neck. He's got his knife and fork ready, and he's ready to gobble up any ball which comes near him. So, you know, that'll play for us if they do that. Tricky wingers, bit more, but, you know, Chambers is a young, quick lad, and I love Clark on the other side. I think if we're going to play that sort of 5/3 at the back, we have enough there to deal with balls coming in. So it's just a midfield for me. So I'd go Kelman and Dykes, or Dyke 5, as Glove Pup wants us to call him. But yeah.
Yeah, Glove Pup in the chat is pointing out that apparently YouTube's filter is taking out some mentions of Lyndon Dykes' surname. It's health and safety gone mad, isn't it? But yeah, so that is quite funny. Dr. Peculiar said Kelman has earned a start. TC off the bench is always a fun option. Yeah, I mean, some of TC's best games have come off the bench, you know, and you think about Ipswich away, obviously the sort of game you can come into. David would like to see TC off the bench as well. Doctor's asking about Collins. Yeah, I think probably after the international break, I think Nathan Jones said recently. So James saying, would Cody come back in? Obviously got the goal away at Middlesbrough, Tom. I mean, could you see a place in the midfield or the defence for Cody?
I wouldn't play him in defence unless we have to for personnel. Not because I don't like him or whatever, but, you know, he's not here to stay. I think, as you guys were saying, I can't imagine we can afford his wages long term. So, again, looking ahead to next season, I'm thinking we want to try and play the players that are going to be here. So, to Mark's point about ranking Costello potentially being a big part of the midfield next year, I see that. So I don't think he'll come in at the back. He might slot in for Coventry just as a rotation and a rest thing, and that I'd sort of say I kind of understand a bit more, but I don't necessarily see that that's necessary. Coventry hasn't played 90 minutes week in, week out recently, has he? He's had some spells out. So no, I'd be happy with Coventry Cody on the bench. And then if we are 1-0 up and we're looking to close it out, that's the sort of experience to come on, be a nuisance, go down, dive, do all that dark art stuff that an experienced footballer would do. So yeah, that's probably what I would expect.
Lovely stuff. All hell let loose has put in the comments. I wonder what the YouTube filter thinks of Julian Dix. Luckily, he doesn't play for us. But yeah, that was quite funny, to be fair. All hell let loose. Enjoyable. A good note to end the show on, I think. We'll leave it there. Massive thanks to everyone who's joined us for this week's big match preview. Some good, honest debates there. I've enjoyed that, actually. So thanks to everyone who's played a part in that. Mark and Tom, it's always a pleasure to see your beautiful faces.
You're welcome, mate.
Both.
Lovely stuff. So we will be back on Sunday morning at 10 o'clock to look back at the Norwich game. Make sure you join us then. In the meantime, check out our merch store, charltonlive.etsy.com, and subscribe to our YouTube channel and everywhere else where you see the podcast as well, so you never miss another show. But for now, I'm Louis Mendez. This has been Charlton Live, sponsored by PSF Steel Limited. We'll see you again on Sunday morning.
with the